I've been, yeah. This is the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat about everything it is, mental health, disability and life in general. Here with me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman, and our very special guest today is Charles Dove. Now, we've had Charles on our podcast before, and he's going to be coming on to talk about all the wonderful things he's doing with Box Positive. Box Positive is a thing where it's non-contact boxing, and he's working with people with Parkinsons, strokes, different... And boxing's got so many wonderful things if it's used correctly. So, Charles, thank you, brother, for coming on.
Thank you very much, Kev. I've been really looking forward to this. It looks it's very professional, very impressed.
I've been very posh.
So thank you. Really excited about talking to you about Box Positive. It's not something I probably should be better at marketing and promoting it and talking about what I do. But I take more pleasure in obviously doing the coaching, as you know, and actually seeing the results and working with the clients that I am, and obviously just seeing the improvements and the pleasure that they get both in sessions and then the effects that it has on their lives, helping them taking back control of their conditions. So yeah, just a bit about Box Positive.
Well, we'll come into that in a few minutes. Yeah. But we always like to start the show with what we're grateful for, because in life it's like when we were doing our support groups, it's like as you weep bit and you go, well, it's been all right. So we've reframed it by talking to different professionals. What are we grateful for this week, be it this week in general or today? And I am, me being a positive person, you know what? I'm grateful got out of bed today. I'm grateful that I'm live and kicking, and a famous Black Country saying, it could always be worse. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Charles, what are you grateful for?
Absolutely. I think, just being grateful for those physiological needs, having food, water, drink, being able to get up, like you said. There's a lot of people that aren't able to stand up. So all those little things, I think it is really beneficial that we do, we are grateful, because that just reminds us of, how lucky we are. And it helps you be more positive, I think, definitely.
Lee?
Oh, I'm sticking along the same lines of you, and not getting out of bed, but my actual bed. I'm grateful for my own bed.
Yeah.
I've spent we spend a lot of time sleeping on the sofa bed downstairs because my daughter's seizures. It's easier with her room being downstairs, but every now and again I do get to sleep on my own bed, and it's absolutely fantastic when I do. I'm just grateful for that. Is there anything better than sleeping in your own bed?
It is.
It's true.
But this is why I enjoy doing it, because we feel like we've got to be grateful for some big epiphany, this big thing. And working with the people you work with, Parkinson's disease, which is very close to me because my granddad had it, and Lee's daughter having her conditions. And sometimes we forget about, I can get up, I can go to the toilet unassisted, I can walk, I can talk, I can live a fairly normal life. And in life, we overlook these miracles, these wonderful blessings that we have every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you are feeling down in the dumps, perhaps those reminders can definitely help you just feel better and empower you. And like Lee said, actually, a night's sleep can massively help. One thing I think is forgotten about in going to the doctors or occupational therapists are big into helping people with their sleep patterns, so sleep hygiene, making sure that you do get a good solid 7 hours at least a night, can really help with your mental health. So obviously, prioritising sleep and these things is going to be really helpful as well.
Well, the only thing not to come with instructions is a bed and mattress. It's the hardest thing to blooming use, isn't it? But as you say, the fastest way of sending someone mad is to deprive them of sleep.
Yeah.
And Lee, with the baby being poorly, it's been a while now, hasn't it, bro, having a good night's sleep?
It's been years, in the truth of it is, just because of even if she's sleeping through the night and everything's fine, you're always listening for a monitor, or you're always, and she's on a feed overnight, so the pump for that's always whirring and always going over the monitor. So in truth, it's been years, but you do adapt to it as well, and you take your breaks when you can. So it might be that it's not that I'd exactly stop in the middle of the day and have half an hour's kit, but I might stop in the middle of the day and just give myself 10, 15 minutes break where I'm not really doing anything, not looking at screens, not doing anything, just relaxing back down. I think that helps.
And if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you might have seen a certain Lee Cadman popping up at the gym doing a bit of training, haven't you?
Yes, back in the gym, hoping to fight again this year. So, back in training,
Brilliant.
The age of 38. I'll be 38 then, won't I? So.
Oh, you're doing well. What moisturiser are you using? I need to get on that.
Lack of sleep, you want to get on it?
But it's been good, hasn't it, bro? Like getting you back in. And because we were always saying you've got to find your medicine, try, do whatever. And I've seen a difference in you this week, Lee. You've been up, is that your third one this week?
Third one this week. I've been training for a while, to be fair, but in a gym in solitary confinement, I kind of put myself away. I go to a regular gym, but I don't talk to anyone there or interact. I just go there to train. So it was nice being back around people and having people, like-minded people there who are trying to reach the same goal, and it motivates you all on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Motivates you all to train a bit harder and work a bit more. But I was saying on the podcast on when did we do it, Kev? Tuesday. Saying on the podcast on Tuesday the club's my second home. I'll go up there every Tuesday and Wednesday for support group and podcast. I've been going since it was opened in 2000. But I felt nervous going up there on Monday and going, well, actually, you've been a coach there for years, you've been up there years, but being on the other side of the ropes again as such, I felt my nerves brewing and a bit of anxiety, and I had to stop myself and go, what are you getting anxious about? You've done this a million times before, and just straightening it back out in my head.
It's probably a good thing. You're preparing to beast yourself by the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it is, yeah. But it's...
like I was a bit late, and as soon as I got in the gym, that was it. I was obsessed, and it really, I don't think I had a day off, and I used to go into the gym on weekends every day of the week and train, and that's why I think I progressed so fast, was just through discipline and hard work. And I was very lucky that Tamworth Boxing Academy opened pretty much straight after my GCSEs, and I went there, so I was able to indulge and train 3 times a day sometimes, and sometimes I think I was a little bit too I look back at my own training now and I see a lot of the things that I did wrong. So examples of being I'd do my training at the gym and then I'd go back and do my own far too intense running and looking for sparring as well, rather than letting the coach organise all the sparring. I'd go and try and get extra sparring because I had this mentality, and I think it's still the same now, that the best form of training is if you can get in there with the best boxers, then it's going to enhance your own skill set. And obviously that is true to a point, but you don't want to overstretch yourself, and I think I did that a little bit too much. I overtrained a bit too much, and obviously that had a negative impact in the end. But if it wasn't for obviously my experience in boxing, which massively enhanced my confidence in school and in life in general, I definitely wouldn't have gone into healthcare, what I did later on. But yeah, I can talk a bit more about that as well if you want.
Yeah. We'll get into this because we were here for a while, and I want to talk about how boxing can be brilliant. As we know, we're all boxing men here. We love the game.
Yeah.
But we've often got to get away from lazy coaching, which is just leaning on the ropes and watching people have heavy spar after heavy spar. Because anyone can do that. A mum and dad who know nothing about boxing can lean on the rope and let someone beat each other up. And good clubs were against that.
Yeah.
And it should be, we have got to spar, to get us through. If I'm going to run a marathon, I've got to be out running on the roads. I can't train for a marathon on a treadmill.
Yeah.
You've got to be getting there. But if I am boxing 3-2s, 3 1.5s or 3 3s, I'll train for that.
Yeah.
And some people are going, well, Lee spars 10 rounds on Mondays, 7 rounds on Tuesdays, and he's had 100 rounds of sparring a week, and his body, whether he's 38 or whether he's 13, he's having got a lot of punishment.
Yeah. And it's for three 3-minute rounds, but you're putting yourself through all of this trauma, and it's not necessary. It's thinking more specific and smart, and making sure that your training is specific to the boxing match. You know, that's what you're training for. You're not training for 12-round professional fight. And I think if you mentality amongst coaches, and perhaps it could come into the coaching courses, it could really educate and help obviously reduce risk to kids, but it would enhance training, enhance their skill set, and it would change the culture as well, like within gyms, of, you know, that tough man mentality. I think you could almost, it would almost make you more skillful as well, because we were talking about this earlier, and there is a place for a harder spar that is at a reduced level. You don't need to be doing it every day, but what you can substitute a hard spar is things like body sparring, technique sparring, lead hand sparring, and all that does is just get you better technique. Absolutely. Whereas actually an all-out war of a spar, really, what's it giving you? No, exactly.
What boxing is a thinking man's sport, like a game of chess. How do I hit you and not get hit? And when it's technical, you can only throw a lead hand to the head, a backhand to the body. I've got to think about it, because when I'm having a war, I'm tough, so I'll grit my teeth and I'll go for you. And a brave man, you've got to look after a brave person more than a coward. Absolutely, yeah. A coward will let you know when the shoulder's gone. A coward will let you know when they're tired. A warrior, it's your job to look at, because they will die. Yeah. It's you to go. And when I have to tell my boxers or pull them out, it's please don't. I went, I'm pride, here, isn't it? Because I love you. If you fall out of me and go to another club, that's up to you, but I know I can sleep at night. Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, we've probably come on to it a bit fast, but, you know, that was my own conflict, you know, but that was my problem as a boxer. I was too brave, but then, you know, trying to get across the right sort of training has been difficult. So, you know, in the end, it became a little bit too stressful for me, and I walked away from competitive boxing coaching. But obviously, I still, you know, love the sport, and I see the benefits of it. But yeah, it's a real challenge, and perhaps, you know, I need to learn, you know, where I went wrong, and just be able to pass that on. I've actually done a YouTube video, just a short one, just telling boxers how they can safely approach their training. So I think, you know, little things like that I can start doing. What's your YouTube channel? Just Box Positive, yeah. There's only a couple of videos on at the minute, but need to get that. But this is why we had a boxer who used to box my dad, Harvey Mitu. He was a journeyman, great amateur, you know. He could have done things, but through poverty, he had to turn professional and become a journeyman. Had 100 professional bouts. And he loves boxing. He made good money doing what he did. But I love getting people like that on lived experience. I'm going to be a journeyman. Well, hang on, mate. You've got to learn how not to get stopped. Yeah. You've got to learn how not to get cut. If I get a cut, I can't box in 28 days. If I get stopped, it's... You've got to learn the tricks of trade, because everyone looks at a journeyman and goes, oh, well, he's rubbish. He had 100 bouts, only one. It's a skill to fight every week. You know what I mean? And make your purse. And it's educating people to go, well, how many people, man, you've been in the game forever. I've had enough of amateur. I'm tired of getting robbed. I'm going to go pro. And you're thinking, are you for real? When money's involved, you're going to get robbed even more. And then if you can't sell the tickets... That's it. It's just a business, really, isn't it? You're making your pimp money. And, you know, it's not, better you treat your pimp. More money you can get your pimp, more he's going to look after you. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing with amateur boxing. That's the way you can really enhance the skill and work on showing people where that it is, you know, a skill sport. So like you said, working on technique more and really breaking sparring down, so you're developing specific skill sets, so you can just work on like slowing things right down, and that's also going to have a positive impact on the brain. The brains can only develop skills through breaking things down. If you overload the brain, it can't
it can't enhance, skills components of fitness, proprioception. They're not going to enhance if you're having an all-out war. So just breaking it right down, working on the skills, and then slowly building it up, putting them together, and then you're going to see dramatic improvements, I think, in people's skill. And it's something I've always liked about the Lions Boxing Club, and something that we did at the academy was that it was always breaking specific skills down, and then you would see those skills would translate into the matches. Then you'd see boxers using those phases of attack, the stepping to the sides. Those things that you've worked on technically have actually translated into the ring. So it shows that you don't have to have tough, hard sparring all the time, and that it actually works. So that's
it's easier to create a habit than to break a habit. So if I can get the habit correct with the technique correct, and the only way, like, if children pick it up more than blokes, say, because a child, if a jab, if you're 28k, 30k, if the jab bounces on my nose, yes, it melts my water, but I'm not as frightened. If I've got an 80 odd K bloke punch me on the nose, it's frightening. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's why Tyson Fury's having so much success, because he learnt all these skills as a baby, as grown into a man.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, with the GB boxers and the former GB boxers, because most of them have been doing it since childhood, teenhood, and they've learnt the fundamental skills.
Yeah. Prioritising that in their training as well. So that was, where I started really with the boxing, and falling in love with that whole process and treating it more as a physical chess match. That's what I always liked about the sport. And I always thought as well, after I was unwell in 2010, there's got to be a way that in hospitals, people with conditions can use that same mentality, that same community vibe that you got in boxing clubs, that feel good, positive spirit, that could be used in helping people overcome their health problems, as well as training for a fight against another person in a competition. You're actually you can train to get that fighting mentality to overcome health problems, and that's where I guess the penny dropped and the seed was planted for me to go into healthcare. I thought I had to go and study to be an occupational therapist in my mid-20s, which was a bit of it was a hard thing to do. It was a big challenge, but it paid off, because with that degree I've now been able to go to doctors and clinically reason why this form of training and exercise is good, and it helps people manage their conditions. So obviously I don't just do boxing, there's other elements of exercise that I work on, and obviously working on strategies and compensatory and rehab strategies to help people. But a big fundamental aspect of it is using boxing as a modality to help people overcome conditions. So there's a lot of positives that have come from my experiences in boxing.
Well, we'll come into that in a bit.
Yeah.
Lee, do you want to go to a few songs, bruv?
Not a problem.
And we're back. May I say, I love the eclectic music.
Yeah.
It's just like how I like it. I was laughing with you off camera. Like, I'm lying in the bath and it could be a bit of NWA, then a bit of Bob Dylan, then a bit of Enya. I'm thinking, is that my playlist? No. So why have you picked these songs?
I tried to...
Can you say what they are first as well?
Yeah, just pick ones that have got a real mix, so help you feel they're uplifting, and ones that remind me of different things that have inspired me when I was younger. I seem to remember when I was young, Enya, my mum always playing Enya. So that's obviously, mum was a big inspiration. She worked on the aeroplanes and was always working hard. Was very inspirational to me. And then there's Bob Dylan there.
Not my dad.
And he was singing about Reuben Carter, Hurricane Carter. There's a film. Who plays him? Denzel Washington, isn't it? Yeah. He was incarcerated for a crime that he didn't commit. I don't think he committed anyway. And that was a song that was written about him. So I thought that was quite fitting.
Yeah, it's a great song. I love it.
It's a tune, isn't it?
My favourite Bob Dylan song.
Yeah.
But back to the boxing. I mean, we're going to go into a bit of box positive now.
Yeah.
And Like we were saying about Parkinson's, but you tell us, I mean, there's something in America that give you the kind of idea for us to bring it over here.
That's right, yeah. So I went into healthcare to use boxing because boxing had really given me a focus and a passion when I was younger. It's obviously my biggest hobby, and had that idea you could use this sport as a form of exercise to help people overcome health conditions. And then whilst I was studying to be an occupational therapist, I came across some research in America when we were doing a project looking at things that can help people with Parkinson's. And I came across a program called Rocksteady Boxing in America, and that was developed by a lawyer with Parkinson's, and he went to a boxing gym, and he came out after his session and he said his hand was rock steady, so his tremor had gone and it had improved his symptoms. So I started looking. There wasn't anything that big over here. I think Bristol have got a program, and then I got in contact with, I saw on Facebook, and this how it seemed quite synchronistic, and like I was meant to do this, because I got in touch with a lady who was running sessions in a boxing gym. I actually went to New Zealand when I was 22, 23 with my girlfriend, and I worked in a boxing gym. Obviously that was a job that I found over there, was doing fitness classes and running non-contact boxing sessions there. And then I saw on Facebook whilst I was studying that they were running Counterpunch Parkinson's, a program over there by a lady called Lisa Roach, and contacted her, and she just so happened to be flying over to the UK within the next couple of weeks and agreed to put me through the training to become first UK qualified Counterpunch Parkinson's coach. And that was just, so exciting, and she had the same sort of vision and inspiration as I did, and it was really motivating to get this degree finished and get started. I think I started Box Positive, a few weeks later, and I got put it in the advertiser in Bromsgrove, and had a few people get in touch with the condition, and it started from there, just at Droitwich Boxing Club where I'm boxing, and getting people to group sessions, and it's just gradually built and grown from there about 3-4 years ago now. So it was initially, inspired by the American program, got qualified by the lady from New Zealand, and then it's just gradually grown. And obviously with COVID, the pandemic came about, that impacted on, branching out, making it a bit bigger, but we've still managed to go very strong. I was able to leave my hospital role to fully focus on Box Positive. So it's been really good, and obviously very inspiring working with these people that have got a chronic condition, to really use this sport to help overcome the symptoms. And it's been so inspiring seeing, one lady has been not able to do activities of daily living like washing herself, and then after the sessions, for the first time in 10 years she's been able to have a bath again. One guy is able to sit to stand much faster, moving. He says that it's like he's put the condition in reverse. And there's these, and you can just see how powerful it is.
Can I just ask, Charles, sorry to butt in, but can I just ask, for people who aren't aware of what Parkinson's is and the symptoms, the physical symptoms that you see from it, can you answer what they are, and also how do you think the boxing helps that side of things?
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I should have given some context into that. So, yeah. So Parkinson's, it's a neurodegenerative condition, and it affects the part of the brain called the basal ganglia, and that's situated in the middle of the brain, and that controls, stops, starts movements, and it uses dopamine sort of as the transmitter, as the oil, if you like, to help initiate those movements. So in Parkinson's, that neurotransmitter, it actually dies off. So people with Parkinson's, they can lose up to 70% of the dopamine without realising, and it's only really after you've lost a considerable amount of dopamine that you start experiencing these symptoms and get a diagnosis. And some people can have it for years before and can have other, I think, things that are not spoken about because it is characterised as a movement disorder. The things that aren't spoken about are obviously a lack of dopamine can also impact on your emotions as well. So chronic depression and feeling down in the dumps is also a symptom, and other things. But the noticeable changes are the bradykinesia. I think the tremor, I think a lot of people think of, but that doesn't affect everyone. Only a few people actually have a tremor that I see, but it more can be that bradykinesia and rigidity, so stiff and slowness. And that's why the boxing, it encompasses all of these exercises that have been proven to be beneficial for the condition. So exercises that work on posture, so really stretching out. So we, obviously, I spoke about last time, we think about fighting. We're always preparing for Nikolai Valuev, who's a 7'2" Russian boxer, so someone that's nice and tall. So we have more of a Nassim Hamed style, so we stand with our chest out, up tall, chin in the air, as opposed to chin down, because that can, I guess, exacerbate that stooped
Crouching,
posture.
yeah.
So rather than flexion, we're working on extension, so really stretching out the arms, and thinking also about the coordination. So something that's impacted heavily in Parkinson's is the ability to coordinate your movements. So when we're doing the pad work, we'll be really trying to, like I said, hold the pad up high, but changing the direction, working on the dynamic balance, and a range of activities that really combat those symptoms. So there's a lot of research out there that shows now and demonstrates how dramatically helpful exercise is, but there's now also more research with directly looking at boxing, and Rocksteady Boxing program in America has got a lot of evidence backing that as well. So yeah, it just, for me, it all makes sense. Boxing is almost everything that the Parkinson's isn't, in a way, and all of those symptoms that people struggle with is directly combated by those boxing movements. So moving fast works those fast twitch muscle fibers, that explosive movement, and also the endorphin release has a neurophysiological impact as well. You'll getting that heart rate up, and high intensity movements can actually improve the endorphin release. Those brain-derived neurotrophic factors that are produced when exercising are produced more when you're doing things like fast punches. So people actually find during these sessions, it's when they really feel like they've got that identity of boxer as opposed to a Parkinson's patient, and they're really fighting back, and they forget about the condition. In a lot of cases, they get into what's called I think the occupational therapists have nicked this, but a state of occupational flow where they can just get immersed. And yourself, when you're hitting the bag, you can really get into just a zone, can't you? And runners get it. It's called the runner's high. But when you see that, and you've seen the video of people hitting the bag, it's liberating for them. So for that moment, Parkinson's goes walkabouts, and when I'm actually I get them in the ring and they're sparring me, they all of a sudden, they haven't got Parkinson's anymore, and they're very sharp, and I've had to stop doing that now because I was actually getting caught a couple of times. But
a few things I want to jump in there though. Look, when you say sparring, now Charlie they're throwing shots at him.
Yes,
he's walking around.
So non-contact.
Because I know someone will be there going, oh, well, because Charles is a boxer and is a kind human being, they're having the feeling of being in there, but without the fear of being knocked about.
Yeah.
And that's where people like you are the right men for the job, because what would it prove? And this is where wrong people in the game, and how many people do we know? Oh, well, my first time I was in there with ex-English champion. Oh, he knocked me about. And you're going, what have you learned? all we've done is polish that man's ego. Boxing shouldn't be about that. It's to keep bullies out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what you're doing is bringing coordination, confidence, relief. And I imagine to some of these people, when your world is shutting down and you can't do the things that you used to do, and you go and hitting something out is great. It makes us feel good.
Yeah.
But we feel like the person we was.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, both during and then just after. You see people walking into the gym, they might have had a hard week, and then after the session, their face is bright, because that's another symptom. The facial masking can come, but you can really see expression in their faces after they've been hit in the bag. And I think something that's really special about the boxing is, like we were talking about before, the reflex system is something that isn't affected. So people will think of boxing that have Parkinson's and they might be put off by the idea of it. But we've had people with the condition come into the gym, and their wives, with a couple of the guys, have been sat there, and they've put the gloves on and they've hit the pads, and the wife has been in tears because they've seen the effect. Both they've seen their partner move faster than they've seen them before, and the liberating feeling that they've got as well. It's quite amazing to see. But it
reminds you, and it reminds your partner that he's still in there, doesn't he?
Yeah,
kind of thing. And I remember when my granddad Bernard, when his medication was right, and I remember seeing him walk without the stick, and it's like, the problem is with medications, it works and
wearing off, yeah.
Oof, I remember Granddad having holes drilled in his head.
The DBS.
Yeah, what I mean, and all these different things. And but if we can do something that hasn't got to be a drug, and it's bringing that natural out of you, and once you've done something and you've proved yourself that you can do it, that's wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's just one of the unique things about boxing. I think there's other exercise programs that have been proven to be beneficial, but a lot of the times people are doing, lunges where they're throwing their arms and stretching out to the side. These are obviously very good exercises, but there isn't a purpose where they're enhancing their skill sets. So with the boxing program, you've got multiple skills that people can learn. So one that's really good for the neuroplasticity, the brain, it's reshaping parts of the brain, but also they're learning a skill and overcoming certain barriers that they may have had last week, and they can see and they can feel when they're hitting the pad. Actually, that's the sensory impact they're getting from the glove hitting the pad, that's improving. So you're getting these outcome measures every week, and they're improving. So whichever way you look at it, I find the boxing program for people with Parkinson's and even, we're just talking about Parkinson's, but it can be equally liberating for someone. For this week that I've been working with, for example, that's had a stroke, and he's got the hemiparesis, so paralysis on one side, and over the last few weeks, we've been working on enhancing that right side, so getting him to stand in southpaw and stepping with his jab whilst he's throwing it. And after these few weeks, he's actually improved in activities, daily living, such as walking. His foot hasn't been hitting the floor as he's been stepping, but he's also said other meaningful activities, which is he likes playing golf. He's improved his golf swing as well. So a lot of these things have been transferable to other areas of, we're not just making people in the moment enjoy themselves, they're actually having knock-on effects to, making a cup of tea, turning over in bed. Obviously, we're working on those twisting, turning, working those core muscles as we're throwing hooks. So
it's all the things we take for granted again, isn't it? All the simple things like making a cup of tea, which we can all do relatively easy, and it's not until you lose that kind of ability that then you appreciate that you can do that. Absolutely. Or you see someone else struggling to do that, then you appreciate how easy it is for you to do it.
I think with brain injuries and with these illnesses, you've lived as a physical able person, and then when it's taken away from you, you're fully aware of what you're missing. And it's not only, and this is what we're going to try and get that, who we're going to try and get on the brain.
Headway,
yeah. But we want to get this on because it's not only the person it affects, it's the husband, the wife, the child, and they have to come to deal with it as well, don't they?
Yeah.
And brain injury, it's so sad. It's so sad. But just watch one of those videos of you, and you're getting the man to punch and to talk at the same time. Why was that?
So that was just a drill targeting a number of symptoms. So they're shouting. They're in their boxing stance, and I've numbered the punches. So it's quite cruel, really. It's quite a difficult drill, but he's demonstrated it really well. John's been coming for a few years, but I think that was the first time he'd done that one. So he's got to think of the punch, what number, and he's got to shout that punch as he's doing it. So it's working on the speech projection. So in Parkinson's, sometimes you can have speech disorders, so the speech can become either slurred or much quieter. So again, there's the symptoms, hypermimia, and it can impact on obviously facial expression, but the speech. And so we get people to really shout out as they're punching. And what he's also doing is working on those fast movements. So he's having to multitask. So like you said, when you're making a cup of tea, you don't realise how many different things are going on. You have to think of where you're getting the cup from, where the tea bags are, and work on that coordination. So those are activities that can become very, very challenging, and perhaps even people would start to avoid them. And if I'm working with people, I try and tell them or encourage them to keep doing those activities and try and enhance those skills. So that was the idea of that drill, just to work on a number of different things at once to try and help speed up or help the brain. The brain's an incredible thing, and you're able to work on neuroplasticity, where you can relearn, work from different angles. So parts of the brain that may have become redundant, you can actually work around that and maybe work on strategies to overcome some of those symptoms.
We had a great man, unfortunately he's passed away now, Pete Gaviscon, and he was
Gavacol.
I've got that wrong every time. But what a tremendous man, and if his family listening, RIP, he was a brilliant man. I learned so much about dementia from him, and it was something as silly as a cup. When you're in nursing, from a child, we learned that a mug has got a hot drink in it, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, so be careful. Whereas a beaker has normally got squash, and sometimes you'll leave a mug next to someone with dementia, and they won't have drunk out of it because they think it's hot. Whereas by changing the glass, allows someone to think, oh, it's water, I'm thirsty. Yeah. And it's these little things, but like my granddad had Parkinson's, and I've learned so much. I've lived with Parkinson's with my granddad, but how you've explained it, I've learned so much about Parkinson's.
Okay, that's good.
And I think by having these conversations like we had Pete, and it gives us an understanding, doesn't it, Lee, about these illnesses, and by having knowledge, we have power. Yeah. And with these things, it gives people an option. Do you have mainly men, or is it men and women? I
think it is probably is a culture thing, but what a word I'm trying to think of. The time, really, people that are older adults. Boxing as a sport, it probably does appeal more to the guys, but we've had a few ladies come on board, but a little bit more clinical reasoning is needed, I think, to try and, I guess, encourage females to take on boxing, because it's got a bit of a bad reputation with some people. So I think, but once that's again been the beauty of Box Positive, is people have been able to come in quite anti-boxing actually, and then once, I'm thinking of a few ladies that come to it, and then once they've hit the pads, they're like, oh, actually, they've got a newfound respect for boxing, and even some of them are watching it now. So, and can see, like you just said, once it's explained to someone, then people can understand and they look at it from a different perspective and can see, oh, actually, there's a lot of thought that's gone into that, and see that it is a physical chess match, because that's one of the benefits of boxing as well, how I teach it. Obviously, we're not trying to get them ready to get into a boxing match, but they are getting ready for what you might think of it as a bigger fight, which is fighting their condition. And using these skills, they're having to really challenge the brain. So if you're throwing a jab, for you and I, it's second nature, but you've got to really think. You've got to turn that hand over, you've got to keep the other hand up, and that's something that people do really struggle with, just those two things, keeping that other arm tight. You've got to also think about what the body's doing, twisting at the hips, and that trunk rigidity can be really difficult to actually rotate, and you can tell people have got the condition just by doing a bit of a activity analysis and looking at them when they first start and seeing how rigid their movements are. So it's actually enhanced my skills as a coach. And when I came back to coaching boxers, I'd see different things. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but I guess it relates back to what you were saying.
It does.
Once you learn more about different things, you see things from different perspectives. So, and
anyone who's done boxing and you're on the pads, there's no greater feeling when you know you've hit it clean and it makes the noise, and you know when you've done it right. And that's, if you've got Parkinson's, fully able, whatever, and you're aware of when it's coming together. Yeah. And that's the good thing about it, isn't it? I can see the growth in my performance. Yeah. Absolutely. And I feel like a tough one again. You know what I mean? 'Cause I'm boxing and...
Yeah, they take on that identity of boxer, and I feel tough. And like that guy that you were just describing, John, the other day I asked him after the round, I said, how do you feel now? He said, I'm in euphoria, Charles. It's euphoric, the punching. It's really liberating. I think that's what's quite amazing. You've got people that have otherwise I feel like it's dopamine enhancing punching. It's really produced
this happy hormone, isn't it?
Yeah,
is that right?
You're releasing your stresses as well, aren't you? At the same time, and I can imagine
that's right.
When you have had Parkinson's and you do have Parkinson's, that there's not many real ways that you can release that stress and the worries that you've gone through to even get to that point. So to be able to just go in there and hit something, I find it really therapeutic, just hitting a bag.
Yeah.
And it doesn't there doesn't have to be aggression behind it, but it does definitely just lose that stress.
And as a bloke, it's appealing, isn't it? Because I'm not knocking anything, so whatever your medicine is, you use it. But like for someone of myself to have kind of done water aerobics or Pilates, or as you're saying, those great exercises for boxing, but I'm doing lunges and working my arms. It's very good for your body and your brain, but it's not for everyone, is it?
No.
Whereas to feel like a boxer and Dad's going to do a bit of boxing today, Jazz, or and you're telling your kids, your grandkids, and it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's still got it. There's life in the old dog yet, and you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And everyone wears the box positive T-shirts with pride, and they're
part of the gang.
Exactly, yeah. It's a real community, and that's something unique about boxing gyms as well, isn't it? You've got a family, and I do feel like we've built a family there. So, yeah, it's really liberating from a number of different perspectives. Absolutely.
Well, Lee, do you want to go to a couple more songs?
Yeah.
And we're back. Once again, loving the music, Prodigy, then a bit of Wu-Tang. Right up my alley. How come?
Yeah, I think those were probably from around the time I was boxing training. I was probably listening to those whilst training, and I think that was one of the things that Nick Davies, one of the sports psychologists...
Yeah, Jedi, we've had him on the show.
Oh, have you? Yeah, he said one of the things that you can do is listen to music whilst you're training and then play that again whilst you're waiting for your fight. So it reminds you of all those training sessions that you've done. So that's probably one of the songs from that. There was a couple of other things that Nick said. There was also diaphragmatic breathing, which is now it's now been proven to reduce cortisol levels, so the stress hormone. So if people are feeling anxious, there's actually scientific evidence that taking these deep breaths and breathing into the bottom of your lungs can help reduce that anxiety and reduce the stress hormone. So that was something that he told me, way back when I was boxing. I would get really nervous before my fights, and he said that was something you could do. And I remember the one fight when I was boxing, England versus Canada, and the doctor checked my blood pressure and heart rate, and usually it would be quite high, but it was quite low after doing the diaphragmatic breathing. So there's no better evidence than that. When you're really nervous for something and you put that into practice, that can help. So that's something that I've also looked into with people with Parkinson's, and I've used that in sessions as well. We always start with that deep diaphragmatic breathing. So that's something that you can look into online if people have got any difficulties or stresses. Just taking a minute. It's mindfulness as well. I suppose from a physiological standpoint, it is diaphragmatic breathing, but there's a lot on mindfulness now.
I'll get my lads doing that all the and girls at the gym.
Brilliant.
Breathing right.
Yeah.
And if it's the thing that we all do, so naturally, you hang me upside down in a dark room, I'll always breathe. But when you're panicking, you forget to blooming do it.
Short breaths. Yeah.
And it's just breathing. It's like when you're in the corner, I'll put my hand on you, I'll lean you back and go, well, I'm talking, you're going to breathe.
Yeah.
And you
reoxygenates everything as well. So from that perspective, it helps your muscles relax, but it also just helps you calm right down, and then you feel refreshed, don't you? The next when the bell goes for the next round, you feel refreshed. So I think that's probably a massive thing as a coach. How you can help the boxers in the corner, because that's when you're most anxious, isn't it? The nerves go when you're fighting, but then you come back to the corner, the nerves start to set in a bit, and it's better to get the breathing going. Get the breathing,
and in the change room, because how many people you're on about 20 before the boxing show started, and you've got your boxing gear on, you walk around shadow boxing. So, and if you can, how much energy have I wasted before I've even got in there?
Definitely, yeah.
Like, say you're on about 20, I'll say, come to the change room on about 15. We start getting the kit on gradually, and then 2 to 3 bouts, then we have a little mover. So, you're getting ready to peak. Yeah. But how many people, they're in 5 hours on boxing, and he's had 400 bounce in his mind? Because your brain...
You're not conserving the energy, are you? You're burning through all of that anxiety, and by the time of the fight, you can be tired. That's probably why I was tired in a lot of fights.
Well, your brain doesn't know that you're not fighting.
Yeah.
You're going over, and if he does this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to shadow boxing, and I don't. So before I get in to do my 3 rounds of actual boxing, I've had 200 bouts out there. And I'm mentally exhausted. And you see some people, and then you'd have the balmy so-and-sos, go on, and they're on the pads for 3 hours, dripping. Got to get him warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a massive one, isn't it, for boxers to learn about, relaxing the body and oxygenating it, getting ready for a competition.
Some people, they've got to go and sit down with the headphones in. Some people have got to go and sit with their family. Some people, you've got to know what works for you, but don't feel like you're being bullied into it. Because sometimes, a lot of the time, anxiety is very contagious. And I see you and I go, hey, don't Charlie, you feel good? No, I'm good. And your dad will walk in and go, oh, he's a bag of nerves. I'm going, you're a bag of nerves. And before you know, and they're not doing it deliberately, because they love you that much, but try and get away from them.
Yeah.
Say, all right, Dad, love you. You go and lean at the bar.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off with Kev or Lee or Charles. You know what I mean? You've got to know you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to get into the zone, and if family and friends, they mean well, but if it's not going to help you, it's going to sidetrack you and make you more anxious. It's probably a better idea to go and work with the coach as opposed to that,
and you need that bond with your coach, don't you? You need that, because your coach is your coach, your dad, your vicar, your therapist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's all these things, because I'm lucky I've got a great family, but so many people haven't, and it's that person you can really go and talk to.
Good bond, yeah.
Good bond, and you're following that person to hell, you know. And if they say jump, you jump, and you sit there in the corner and go, your jab's not working, you believe them wholeheartedly. And this is when we touched this earlier. If you go to a boxing gym and the first night they have you in doing heavy sparring, it's not the right place. And people will argue, disagree, whatever. But you should not be in there being lamped.
Yeah.
Because it's not teaching you to be tough. I remember every lamping I've ever had, not one of them's made me tough. It's made me think, I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you learn how to survive.
Yeah.
You survive a mugging. You know, it doesn't make you tough to go out there and be mugged.
Yeah.
You learn how to survive.
Yeah, that's it. And talking about earlier training the brain, if you're training to get hit, it's going to translate into the ring. So you need to have structured sparring and working up to open sparring. I think that was something that was very, very difficult to do when I was boxing. I didn't have that much guidance, especially when I was on my own. I was trying to sort out my own sparring, and that was a mistake, really. But those are the things you learn from, don't you?
Do you worry about CTE yourself? Because you've kind of seen Parkinsons, which I'm not saying the people who come to you it's from boxing, but potentially it is.
Yeah.
But you've sparred. You say you box for England. You've sparred some great people. Do you worry about how that's going to affect you when you get older? Absolutely.
I think last year was a big one for me because I'd worked for a few years in a neuropsychiatric setting, working with men that have had brain injuries and then mental health problems as a result of the brain injuries. And I also met and had been working with an ex-professional boxer that was living with pugilistic dementia, now known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So that was a difficult one for me, and I've been trying for all these years working in healthcare, trying to fight the stigma attached to boxing, and actually I've come across some absolutely amazing and lovely people in boxing, and in all honesty, I've come across lovely people in healthcare, but I've come across more sort of nasty people that have got some quite horrible negative things to say, about the sport, and I've always vehemently defended boxing. But then last year, I've met this guy with CTE. I've done more research about concussion, seeing the effects on the brain, and that's led me to a bit of a conflict. And as you're talking there about coaching boxing, it's something that I've done for years, and it's quite difficult listening because I really miss it. But when I was trying, after we'd come back from the lockdown, I was trying to make the sport safer within the gym because the kids hadn't boxed for quite some time. So, and I'm quite focused now on brain injury and trying to prevent that. When I tried to change the rules and try and encourage safe ways of approaching training and cutting out open sparring, I had parents taking their kids to other gyms to spar at other gyms behind my back, and it became a real worry thinking about, again, the CTE, thinking about the brain injury. And I felt the easiest option for me was just to pull away from competitive boxing coaching. And I've now got another goal in life, and that's to try and improve boxing and make it safer for young people, especially because thinking back to me when I was training, when I was come to 2010, I had one thing on my mind only, and that was going to the 2012 Olympics. I was boxing for England already, and really there was I knew if I was going to put everything into this sport, I was going to do it. And what I did, I came to Christmas 2010. I looked for Nathan Cleverley's on Facebook, and I found his dad, Vincent Cleverley, and I messaged him and asked if I could go down and spar Nathan. He was the British light heavyweight professional champion at the time. So I took it on myself to plan to go down there in January. Had the championships lined up in, I think, was it February, March. So I wanted to get in there with the best possible boxer I could do, and drove down to Wales on my own at 19. I must have had balls of steel, because I wouldn't do that now. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. Training in the Welsh valleys. I was it was living the life of a champion. Going for runs with him. I sparred him every day. I was literally in heaven as a boxer. I loved it. I was sparring with another pro, but we were sparring heavy rounds, and the guys at the gym, they said, "Oh, it's professional. It'll be slower paced. He won't spar how he boxes." Mm-hmm. So I went in there thinking, "Oh yeah, it'll be slower paced." And I got in there with Nathan Cleverley, and he threw the most punches anyone had ever thrown at me every round. And I just thought, this is crazy. He was new, and he was coming forward as well. So it was constant pressure. He was constantly in range. So I took a lot of punches to the head. 7 days, I did over 24 round sparring that week. And then I came back to Hall Green, where I was boxing then. And Frankie Gavin was training with Tony Bellew at Anthony Farnell's gym, and they'd got wind that I'd been sparring Nathan Cleverley, and they were massive rivals at the time, and they hadn't yet met. And Bellew then obviously wanted to spar me, so Frankie Gavin had organised that. I went up to spar with Bellew a couple of weeks later after sparring Cleverley, and we did 3.5 minute rounds with 30 seconds break. And it was just, he punched unbelievably hard, like a mule. It was crazy where he got his power from. But obviously he also had a point to prove. Maybe he wanted me to go back and tell Cleverley that was the hardest I'd been hit. So from a boxer's perspective, in my head, I was, there's no way I was going to lose now. I've had the training, I've had the preparation. Then I had a couple of club show bouts, fought your own Ricky Summers.
Yeah, great fights.
Had 2 fights with him, and then I boxed about five times in the senior ABAs after that. And thinking back now and having the knowledge that I have on the brain, I can understand that, in the space of 3 months, my brain was shaking in the skull, and obviously there isn't anything protecting the brain inside the skull, and it was every time it takes a punch, it moves in the cranium, and it bangs against the skull, and there's sharp ridges that tear parts of the brain each time this happens. So now I've realised that because I didn't have a coach there when I was sparring these guys, I was taking it on myself to go and organise these spars against people that were professionals that did this for a living, and I wasn't in any position really to be organising that myself. And I now realise, after fighting and winning the Midlands title in the Tower Ballroom against Jimmy McCann, I went off on a bit of a. I didn't sleep for a few weeks, and I just totally lost my grasp on reality. Just went what was a psychotic episode, and I was hospitalised for 8 to 10 weeks, and it was a culmination, obviously, of anxiety, but punches to the head over really years as well, and it was what I know now is post-concussive syndrome. And
what's that mean? Concussed over and over?
Yeah, so obviously when I was sparring, I was having the concussion.
Yes.
A number of times, but it was something that I was I just become accustomed to, I think. And if you look it up, actually all of those symptoms I had come is aligns with that post-concussive syndrome. So it's only something that I've really learnt about since working in brain injury. So looking back, it became just difficult for me. And obviously I've gone almost 10 years believing that what I went through was like a existential angst, like my inability to cope with the pressure. And I think it was like a mix of that as well. I think, there was a lot of stress involved in championships and boxing. But then looking at it from a neurological standpoint, actually in those 2-3 months, look at all that sparring and all those punches I would have taken, 6 fights and sparring numerous professional fighters. It's just, it just wouldn't, it was inevitable that what happened to me happened. And I was lucky really that I got away with it just being that. So yeah, in answer to your question, I do worry now about, yeah.
Well, I read a book recently by Tris Dixon called Damage and it's about CTE in boxing, and he goes round interviewing boxers who've suffered through it and their families, and it surprised me how many that you don't hear about really who are suffering from CTE from boxing. And it's a hard one because I can't actually diagnose it properly until that person dies and they're able to take the drug, because it's something to do with spike protein.
Tau protein.
That's it, sorry. Yeah. So it is hard. But do you think you would have, if you know what you know now, would you have still boxed at that time? Because I think to myself, well, you hear it off the boxers and they're kind of like,
I would have done,
it's kind of like a pension, isn't it? It's something that you don't think you need in your 20s and 30s, and then all of a sudden this thing creeps up on you, and you actually you should have done something about that earlier, but you don't realise until then.
And yeah, I do worry that, but I loved it, and I think it gave me so much, the boxing did, outside of it. And without the boxing, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been so, down. I was a very sad kid, so it saved me in a way. So I don't regret my box, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for my hospital experience either. So, and I wouldn't have the knowledge of how to coach and try and hopefully change things in the future and prevent kids from making the mistakes I made. But yeah, like you say, that once you've had a concussion, that part of the brain doesn't repair. So it makes a lot of things make sense as well. And whether, when I've gone through periods of, suicidal ideation where I've, had, chronic negative thoughts, it's made me, really wonder whether it was an effect of the punches, or whether, I don't know, but it probably doesn't help having, worrying about it. But I think it's definitely what we're doing, talking about it. And Tris Dixon's done an incredible job with that book. I read it as well.
It's fantastic.
Amazing. And that's part of my liberating experience over this last year, is hearing other boxers having the psychosis as well. And up until Tris Dixon wrote that book, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard.
It was just you.
Yeah, I didn't know that the other boxers have had this as well. It's been amazing, sort of knowing yourself and taking that step back and reflecting on things has definitely helped, and it's helped my practice as a healthcare professional as well.
But you're right as well, and we've got to talk about it, and we've got to. I think at an amateur stage, as coaches, we need to be taught about that on the coaching courses, that these are the potential dangers. If you are much heavy sparring, if you're doing too much of this, you don't need to do it. So you need to put it, but also the boxers need to understand that as well.
And this is why we have these conversations, because if I say to all the lads, if I find you've gone sparring without a coach, you're out the club, because I know my boxer, and if I see you beating up Lee, and Lee's my boxer, I'll go, that's enough, we're off. You know what I mean? I can control it. We now go into a lead dance, and if you don't play ball, we're leaving. But if he's my boxer and you're not my boxer, I will stop it. I will jump in on your behalf. Yeah. And every time I've had clubs down and my lad's getting the better of their lad, and I go, stop. And they go, oh, no, he'll be all right. I went, no, this ain't right.
Yeah. Like the coaches shouldn't be macho for them.
There's nothing worse than a brave coach, is there? You know what I mean?
It's bad, yeah.
And I'm the first one to tear a lump. And the first time you have to tell someone, you're thinking, he'll never forgive me. He'll never, it doesn't matter if you fall. It's like just a conversation with suicide.
Yeah.
Even if they don't, you phone them a crisis number, you've kept them alive. Like, you've kept that boxer safe. And if your boxer is concussed or you act, and there's no harm in acting early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, he could have turned that around. Who cares? It's a hobby, for goodness sake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be taken seriously, but it is just a hobby, and there's so much more to life, and you've got a life later on. And I'm working with people with Parkinson's, a lot of guys that have headed the heavy footballs when they were younger, and I think you've got to prioritise your health. That's you've got to invest in your health. So you've got to take steps in training to make it as safe as possible. And yeah, I think there's lots of things. Even drinking more water is a big one. There's a thin layer of water between the brain and the skull. So boxers drinking more water in training.
It's not even in training. It's making weight as well.
Yeah, dehydration.
Dehydration. Plays a big part in it, and
makes it more dangerous.
That's it. If you have to dehydrate to make weight, then you're in the wrong weight.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny what you said at the start of this segue. It's like, I remember seeing it on Facebook. So I was the same. Like, we'd had basically a year off.
Yeah.
And they're going, "Oh, we're sparring." I go, "No, we're not. We're going to come in, we're going to get base fitness." If you just walked in off the street and went, "All right, Kev, I ain't seen you in ages. Can I spar tonight?" I go, "No."
Yeah.
I don't care if you were an ABA champion last time you walked in here. You've had a year off.
Exactly, yeah.
So we got back to base fitness and we're doing technique. We love doing the technique. And he throws a jab, you defend it. Then he throws a jab, you defend, come back with a shot.
Yeah.
You built up, then it was a bit of light lead hands, and then you build. They go, "Well, they're doing that down the road." I went, "Then go down there."
Absolutely. It's conditioning, isn't it? When you're a seasoned boxer, you get used to the sparring. Your muscles adapt, your neck adapts. Again, the proprioception, your awareness, your ability to take punches improves. And when you've had that year off, and they were getting into sparring and they were trying to rip each other's heads off, and I said, we need to do touch first. We need to do technical stuff and build it up. And that became very difficult for me to watch, and I just had to step away from it. And it was knowing what I know now. It's been a real difficult one because I love the sport and I really miss it, but I couldn't take it all on. But yeah, like I said, my approach to training when I was boxing myself was wrong, and how I approached my training was get as much. I must have, I got in touch with the ABA champions, the Midlands. I remember Kaya Ingram and going to his gym, and this was outside of my own club's sparring and coaching. I would go and organise this all myself, and that was probably a credit to how I enhanced my own skill set. But there was much easier ways than going about, and the amount of training I did was too much, really. So making things specific, I think, is the key. But absolutely, I'm glad that I've not met another boxer that's read that book. So I'm really, yeah.
Well, I know it's kind of brought on. I've seen a lot more on Twitter now with the likes of Tony Jeffries, who's now advocating for it as well, and he's trying to set up some kind of program. It's in early days. I think he put a tweet out there last week, and there was a load of boxers like Enzo Macronelli replying to it, and just to try and bring down that rate of CTE in retired boxers. Yeah. Because again, it surprised me that you look at Tris Dixon's book and the age that these boxers are passing away. It's really young, really, in the age that people are living to, and the last 10, 20 years of their life is not a great life at all. No. A lot are ending up in mental institutes, in and out of those that or that can't look after themselves at all, and we need to start educating the coaches within amateur boxing, because that will transfer into pros as well, won't it? What we do now at this level, it all transfers up, and hopefully in 10, 15 years' time, you're not seeing such severe cases. Definitely. And as I said off air, I think it was the Ingle gym, who have had countless world champions. They body spar, so it's not out of this realm that you can't have that don't hard spar.
Yeah,
Head spar, should I say, not hard spar, head spar.
I think that's definitely a debate that I'd be up for having, and I think it would be we're getting more people. As Anthony Yard I mentioned, I don't think he spars or head spars, and I think there's an argument for that. And if it's gonna help with enhancing your skill set, because if you think about it, when your head is taking trauma, it's questionable whether those skills that you're trying to acquire are going to be able to, you're actually going to be able to learn them. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, like sort of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Whether you could adapt your training so you could just do the 3 steps forward without having to take any steps back. I feel it's definitely an argument worth having, and we can look at ways, and I feel like that's another incentive of mine. If I'm rehabilitating these people, some boxers, and there's another boxer I had on the Zoom group on Saturday who's got Parkinson's, and it's great that I'm helping these people then, but why can't I now direct things to preventing as well? So if I can help prevent someone getting one of these conditions, that's an added incentive for me. So I'm a massive fan of Tony Jeffries, and he was a big sort of inspiration for me. And his wife now is a nurse, she did a video on post-concussive syndrome, actually talked about concussion. So that's she's called Nurse Sarah. So if you have a watch of that video, it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, obviously, again, advocates for the sport of boxing, love the sport, but we just want to make it safer. And I that's the thing, I'm 100% backing the sport of boxing. I think it's the greatest sport, but I feel like, and I don't want to people might think that I'm wanting to ban the sport, and that's the last thing I want, because if you do ban the sport, it'll just go underground. It'll be chaos. So you need the sport to help, obviously, improve kids' lives, reduce knife crime, equip kids to help them feel confident using these, as opposed to having to think of carrying a knife, which is a big positive for boxing. But yeah, I just want to make the sport as safe as possible. And
in American football, in the USA, it's not that popular over here, but they've made great strides in stopping CTE. So there's precedent there and something to kind of copy, to see how they did it and convert that over into boxing and help there. And
I wonder why boxing isn't getting...
Well, I mean, I think he mentions it in Trish's book that it's to do with, for American football, as far as I'm aware, there's one organisation who kind of...
There's funding, isn't there?
Overlook it.
Yeah.
Whereas boxing is spread out between amateur boxing, 15 different promoters or 100 different promoters, so it's harder to then put things in place. Like, rules are different in different states in America. Rules are different from the UK to the US in boxing, whereas American football, it's all under one banner, so they can control
and I guess
what's happening.
Well, I've enjoyed about this, though, guys. We're all boxing men, all love the game. We've had a tough conversation here about boxing.
Yeah.
And this doesn't happen in the world now, because I'm pro boxing, you're against boxing. No. And you shout at each other. We all love boxing, especially amateur boxing.
Yeah.
But what can we do to make the game that we love better?
Yeah.
Now, I understand, I personally, head sparring, body sparring, but it's got to have themes.
Yeah.
And the only way that we have our success at the moment is it's not a brave coach, we were saying earlier. If you see someone who isn't well, or isn't hurt, or is outclassed, or you jump in so they haven't got to. And the only way you do it is by doing it right.
Yeah.
The barbaric way. This is just my opinion, you know what I mean? But when we're barbaric and it's, he will be all right. And you know yourself, sometimes we're too tough for our own good, and you'll go in there, I'll be all right, it's making me better. You need someone to go, enough.
Yeah.
Go and have a rest. Well, I'm on England on the weekend, so I'm going to spar all this week.
Yeah.
You've got to peak on the weekend. You've got to peak when you box. Definitely. If you're peaking on Wednesday and you're boxing on Sunday, we've peaked too early.
Absolutely.
Let's get sharp so you're good on the...
Kev, you've also got a bit of emphasis has got to go on the actual boxer. So we need to educate boxers, and we need to allow them to take that time off as well. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've gone sparring, you come out of that sparring with a headache. That boxer's got to have the confidence to be able to tell you that he's had a headache. Yeah. And then you obviously don't let them spar anymore. And there's well, that's it. That's it exactly.
You've got to be honest.
Yeah, and they've got to be honest with you, and again, it's that relationship, and it's the way a coach, because you can almost hear it in the Rocky movie. What, you got a headache? Get back in the ring. You know what I mean? And
tough culture, isn't it?
That's it, and that's got to kind of go out there and go. Actually, you're not tough for getting back in the ring with a headache. You're tough if you sit out and miss that sparring until you feel better.
I think this conversation we've had is literally, life changing. I think it can really. I would really be up for creating something. I've tagged England Boxing in a couple of posts as well, and I would really like for England Boxing to put together some training where coaches are learning something. So my theory would be, on the coaching course, what would be probably the easiest thing to do and not too idealistic, have on the coaching course something about brain health. So go in depth about the skull and about the brain and the importance of skill enhancing sparring as opposed to open heavy sparring. So have that in the coaching course, and then it's the coach's duty of care to go and deliver that at their boxing gym to their boxers. So therefore it's having an effect, and I think that would probably be the easiest. England Boxing are always going on about they can't fund this or that. Actually having being able to prevent kids from having concussion and potentially, depression and then later problems, that's got to be priority, I think.
And a mental health first aid course, I think.
Absolutely,
you've done your level 1, haven't you? For 2 weekends, it goes on, and you're thinking, blooming heck, if you don't know how to do a boxing stage, throw a jab, you shouldn't be here. And it goes on, and you're thinking, so why don't we condense it? If you have to do 2 weekends, can you do this? Can you do that? Here's a bit of things to look out for. Yeah. Physically, if he's got concussion, and then if he's showing signs of depression, if we can make it so we're actually leading the way.
Definitely.
Wouldn't that be blooming brilliant if amateur boxing was the jet setter? You know what I mean? Because we know in every ghetto, in the place where police won't even go, there's a boxing gym. Yeah. They do so much good for the community.
It's family, isn't it?
But if we could lead the way in health and mental health, wouldn't that be blooming brilliant?
Absolutely, and that's my goal as well. It's an incentive of mine is to massively help these kids understand, the impact of doing things wrong and trying to inspire them. I think that's how they respond, isn't it? I know when I was a kid, if someone tried to talk to me about brain injury and I'm boxing, I didn't want to listen to that. So you've got to somehow inspire them, and having someone like Tony Jeffries is a good person, but people over here like yourselves, I think having that open discussion and thinking back, that was something I don't feel like I had that relationship like you talk about with your boxers. I don't feel like I necessarily had that, and if I did, I wouldn't have been organising things myself. And when I was in hospital, I didn't have a coach, didn't come to see me in there. So, and I think that was probably one of the biggest, most heartbreaking things for me when I was there. I didn't have anyone come to see me, and I wanted to be. I was representing that club, and I wanted to be a champion for them, but I didn't really, feel like I was part of a team there. So yeah, that's. I find it hard now not to feel some animosity towards the coach. I feel like it's not their fault because I was 19. I was a grown man, but thinking back to myself, I was just a kid really, and I shouldn't have been in that situation.
And I think sometimes you have to remember that he learned his ways off someone else.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I can't be.
But then it's our responsibility to teach us the right way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I heard something on something the other day that we have dirt thrown on us on our path from our parents and from our teachers and from our peers and from experience. And it's not our fault that they're throwing the dirt on us, but it's our obligation to get the dirt off and teach our children how to keep a clean path.
Yeah.
Because if we justify it by, well, my parents put the dirt on, so I put it on my... That will always happen. It's our duty to give them the tools to clean their own path. Have I explained that right?
Yeah,
I think so.
It's giving them the independence, and that's the power that they figure out the route, their path themselves, don't they? And I think that's what's most important, improving people's ability to understand. Because if they've got the power to understand and make a change themselves, that's when it's going to happen, isn't it? Not doing it for them.
And just, well, back in my day, this is what we did. You know firsthand how it was to have them sore hands and bad headaches.
Yeah.
So what can we do to make it better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Joel, we're almost at the end. So how can people find you?
So yeah, you can go on to Google Box Positive. It should come up. I'll have a T-shirt in the car for you both. So yeah, or you can email me, charlesdelve@boxpositive.co.uk. Have a look at the website, boxpositive.com, and just, yeah, if you know anyone with any conditions or people that want to combat their own frustrations, mental health problems, neurological conditions, then definitely I've gone through this training where I've learned how to be a healthcare professional and an occupational therapist, and I'm still a boxer and I've still got a boxing mindset as well. So I've inevitably come to a point where I've had this conflict, and I think, it's been really beneficial for me just coming on here and having a chat with you two, and it's so empowering. You rang me the other day, Kev, and just talking to you is you're obviously the right person to be in these kids' lives, because it's so easy to offload to you, isn't it? You're probably thinking...
You let you get a word in.
No,
you have a sore throat, Kev.
To be fair, yeah, he did, and I was... You're probably thinking, shut up.
Lovely, mate. No. This is what we've got to do with each other. By having these conversations, it allows other people to have conversations.
Yeah.
And let's make these taboo subjects not so taboo, and like what you've come out with today. And once we allow people to be honest, they will be honest.
I think it's a level of understanding you get as well from having conversations like you've taught today, and hopefully explain to people what Parkinson's is and how boxing can help it, and there's people out there who don't understand that, and hopefully they now have a better outlook and a better understanding, and and can be more helpful with people with Parkinson's.
Absolutely.
And
thank you.
Where do you want to take it? Where's the next big thing that you want to do?
So yeah, that's the exciting thing that I've discovered the last couple of weeks. Rocksteady Boxing in America have been in touch with Parkinson's UK, and then Parkinson's UK have been in touch with me and told me that they would like me to deliver the Rocksteady Boxing to boxing gyms, to healthcare professionals and clinics over here, so that people with the condition can obviously have within their region this program, and I think that would be.
So you'll be training the coaches to then do it, so it can spread to the whole of the UK, hopefully.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the plan now, and I think being with Rocksteady Boxing, they're the global leader in this, so I think that makes things a little bit easier from an organisational perspective. I'm a little bit, I find it very difficult managing. In an ideal world, obviously, it would be Box Positive, but perhaps that's just my ego talking. But I think, realistically, Rocksteady Boxing they're the main organisation, and they can help. Working with them, I think actually combining the skill sets is going to be, game changing for the Parkinson's community.
I think you have to look at it that if you go with Rocksteady Boxing, you can move it along quicker, which means you're helping more people quicker.
Exactly, it's the people with the condition, isn't it? If they can get the best treatment, that's what comes first, isn't it? Absolutely.
And if someone's out there listening to this and they've got Parkinson's or someone, what would you tell them?
I'd say look up your local. You can go to Parkinson's UK and you can find a local support group, but a lot of people might not want to be around other people with Parkinson's, so you could get in touch with me. and I can talk to you about the condition and give you some strategies, so whether those be compensatory aids to help you in the house, things that you can put around to help you, or some rehab exercises, and I can help you with those as well. And if you don't want to, get in touch or try boxing, that it can be a little bit intimidating. Rest assured, it's not. And you can just have a look at some of the videos online. I'm trying to get more active on the internet as well. So trying to get some ideas and exercises together so people can just, click and learn from home.
You just said something interesting. I don't know if you've got time to get into it now, but
I've been really quick.
Chatting
I'll ask you another.
Sorry.
Come on. No, 'cause that's just something that sparked in my head. But I mean, it's brilliant, Joel, and I think it's what you're doing is wicked, and I think, just keep on doing it, brother, and and where will they, if they want to do it? Where is it at Droitwich?
It is at Droitwich Boxing Club for people that live locally, but there's also Zoom sessions, so that's one positive of the lockdown. I've seen people from all over the country, so yeah.
Well, bruv, just before we go, have you got any quotes or sayings that helped you get through life?
I guess just the best currency or the best thing that you can do, or is the impact that you have on other people. So if you can make someone else's day, that's going to enhance your own day. So I think that's probably not the best way of putting it, but yeah.
You tried your best.
Yeah, gave it a go.
Well, next week we're joined by the wonderful Kerry Davies from More Mascots Please, CIC. So join us here. And if you ever want to listen back to our episodes, go to our YouTube channel or podcast and listen to all of them over and over again. So, guys, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
So until we see each other next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.